Exploring Monica reached down to her mother's wide-open cunt and slid a single finger into the waiting hole. She quickly realized that, with her tiny hands, she could not explore very far with just one finger, and that 2 fingers would not be much better. She made her hand flat and slid all 4 fingers into the hole, and didn't stop until her thumb was covering her mother's piss hole. She rotated her wrist and felt around inside for a short time, and as she did, she could see that her mother was enjoying the hand buried in her cunt. After a while she removed her hand and wiped the juice on her mother's flaps and anus. She lifted her hand to her lips and tasted her mother's thick, rich cunt juice before returning to play inside some more. Robert held his hand next to hers, and quietly demonstrated to her how to hold her hand, thumb pressed into palm. He also motioned for her to press in harder and deeper into Rebecca's cunt. Monica got the message and did as he suggested. Her fist easily slid inside, past her wrist, until most of her forearm was buried in her mother. Rebecca was a little surprised and raised her head to look at the 2 between her legs. "Mommy, I didn't know your vagina was so deep," Monica exclaimed. "Can you feel right at the end? There is a hard lump right at the back. That is your mom's cervix." Robert continued on with his hands-on anatomy lesson. "It is the bottom of your mother's womb where you grew as a baby." "Yeah, I can feel it. There is a dent in the middle. That is a hole, the entrance to the womb. You came out through that hole 11 years ago. If you are really gentle you can maybe stick 1 finger up inside." Monica clenched her hand into a fist except for her index finger. She pushed her whole arm in harder and slowly slid a finger up and into her mother's uterus. Rebecca didn't feel anything, apart from Monica's fist and arm filling her cunt. "With the tip of my finger I can just feel that I'm inside the hole. The muscle is really tight on the rest of my finger, but not on the fingertip, so I guess I'm inside." "Okay. Pull it out and make your hand into a fist," directed Robert. "Okay. Done." Robert then took hold of Monica's elbow and started to pump her arm in and out of Rebecca's wet cunt. Rebecca let out an audible sigh and started breathing heavier and in time to the strokes. Monica now understood that Robert was using her arm to have sex with her mother. Robert felt that Monica was using her own strength to drive the fist inside, so took his hand away, and watched as the young girl fist-fucked her mother. After a few minutes Robert could see that Rebecca was about to climax. "Your mom is about to come. I'll help." And with that he took hold of her elbow again and helped her pick up the pace. Soon Rebecca was half grunting, half shrieking in an orgasmic fit. When she fell silent Robert held Monica's arm tight to stop her pumping. He held her there, arm buried in her mother, until the older woman had come down from her high, then slowly slid a wet limb from its hiding place. "I'll let you lick that clean. Your mom's juice is really nice." Monica started cleaning her arm and watched as Robert leaned forward and buried his face in her mother's pussy. She could see past the side of his face as his tongue licked her flaps, darted into her vagina and across her puckered asshole. "Mommy, what does that feel like?" questioned Monica. "Which part? Your hand in my pussy or Robert licking me?" "Both I guess, but I was thinking of the licking bit." "Well, it is hard to describe. It is really nice to be touched on the outside by something that is soft and wet, and Robert's tongue is both of those. On the inside you want something that is hard and that fills you up?" "I was a bit surprised when Robert started using your fist, but it felt really great." "What does an orgasm feel like?" "That is a really hard question. You can't compare it to other things and feelings because it is so different. Just before it happens you feel like you are going to burst, but you don't. It sort of clears your mind, you are only thinking of the cock, or fist in this case, that is inside your vagina. It's as if your brain gets sucked down into your pussy. Sounds weird. It is a bit. Hey, it'll happen to you one day," Rebecca reassured the young girl. Robert had finally sat up, wiping the juice from his cheeks with the back of his hand. "Mommy, I want to get a mirror and have Robert show me all the bits of my vagina. Is that okay? Please say yes," Monica begged. "I don't know, darling. It's okay. I'll be very gentle." Robert cut Rebecca off. He wanted to have a nice long look at the tiny pussy he had been fingering earlier. "I suppose it will be okay." This time it was Monica who cut the sentence short. "Thanks, Mom." And with that the young girl bounced off the bed and ran to the cabinet in the ensuite. She returned seconds later with a small mirror in one hand, while attempting to remove her panties with the other as she walked. "Hold this," she commanded of Robert as she stood beside the bed, thrusting the mirror in his face. He took her by the shoulders. "Slow down. This isn't a race." Once he had stopped her, He slid his hands down either side of her slender body, took hold of her panties and pushed them down below her knees. She kicked them off as she crawled onto the bed, then flipped herself onto her back between the two adults. As they watched, she spread her legs wide and held the mirror between them so that she could see her own tiny crack. "I said it wasn't a race, so slow down. Shuffle up the bed some more so that your head is on a pillow. It will make it much easier for you to hold your head up to see in the mirror. Okay? Okay. Sorry." Robert looked down at the tiny hairless pussy spread wide before him. Her crack was open and he could see the deep pink mouth of her tight little cunt. Robert cradled a butt cheek in the palm of each hand and rubbed them a little. He took her thighs and lifted her legs until her feet were high in the air. Her tight ass rolled into view and he could see a tiny brown stain in the center of her pink puckered anus. Monica was watching in the mirror and she saw it too. My ass isn't clean. Sorry. I can fix that," Robert said in a quiet, but assured, voice. He leaned forward and proceeded to lick the young girl's anus with the flat of his tongue pressed hard against her puckered hole. To make sure she was clean, he stretched the skin outward with the pads of both thumbs and pushed the tongue tip into the center. "Oh, that feels really good," Monica said in a soft voice. "Aren't you worried about the poop in your mouth?" "Not really. I've done it before and it doesn't taste bad if there is only a tiny bit like that. I'd never want to eat a lump of poop or anything. Now let's have a look at this pretty little pussy." Robert gently stretched Monica's vulva apart and gazed at the tiny little flaps inside. He proceeded to give her the guided tour of her own pussy, touching and stretching and pointing to the various parts as he went along. Her clitoris was extremely tiny and Robert was getting a little worried until Rebecca recalled that hers had been the same until it grew during puberty. Robert ran his fingertip around the mouth of Monica's vagina and wet it with her juice. He rubbed his wet finger against his thumb and felt that it was nice and slippery. "Have you had your first period yet, young lady?" he asked. Monica was a little embarrassed, but soon spoke. "No. Not yet. Mommy said it should be soon." Robert returned to Monica's cunt and gently pushed a single joint of his finger inside. He rotated his hand back and forth a little, then slid the finger back out. He held it under his nose and drew in a deep breath. Finally he put the digit in his mouth and tasted the juice with a considered look on his face. "I want another taste. Do you mind if I put my finger in deeper?" "Sure. It feels really good." Robert had fingered her for over half an hour as Rebecca slept, so once more didn't bother her. Rebecca wasn't so sure, but said nothing. Robert slid his index finger back into the girl and again rotated his hand to touch every part of the inside of her vagina. He drew it out and repeated the sniff and taste test. Without asking, he leaned forward and sniffed her tiny cunt before licking the juice from around the opening. When he sat up again, both mother and daughter were staring at him as if he had gone mad. "Oh. Sorry. Let me explain." He paused a little, then continued, "I might be wrong, but I'm almost certain that this young lady is ovulating, right now." "What does that mean, Mom?" Monica was a little confused. "Well, if Robert is right, you have made your first egg, and that in 4 or 5 days from now you will have your first period," Rebecca explained, then asked of Robert, "You can tell that?" "Sure. I have known a few girls and I can just tell. I think it is a feelings thing. I just want your finger back inside me." That felt really good. Robert looked at Rebecca, who gave him the slightest nod. He licked his middle digit, then slid it up inside the young girl's cunt again. He fingered her for a minute or so, and it made his cock grow hard.